Welcome everyone to the monthly meeting of the Racial Justice Rising programs that we do every month. And as you know, the sign-up sheet and literature and there's food and and there's bathrooms are to the right and mostly to the right, I think today. Only to the right today. So I just want to welcome everybody in. We have a special guest today. This is my mother, Georgina LaRoque. She came all the way from New Brunswick, and with Nadine, who is her helper and more, who really drove her all that way yesterday. So, and it's just a treasure to have her. And, so I want to greet her appropriately. So, grandmother, I know that historically, that also this is part of Montana, as well as the Punks, the Mohawks, the Mohawks. A lot of people walk through the parents to be truly nomadic. We didn't recognize all these boundaries that they have carved it into at this point. So we welcome you here on the long journey to the world. And I would like to all of our ancestors, grandmothers, and grandfathers, all the people here, because whenever we gather in a circle, the spirits are with us and among us, and all our ancestors are with us. And every time we gather like this, we heal with each other and we heal all that went before. And, it's the kind of moment that we're here. So everything about you, everything that came from the beginning of time is sitting in this room right now. So we are welcome everyone in. We'd like to give you the tobacco, grandmother, to welcome you to this territory, and actually for you to come back to this territory. So it so happens that we are actually biologically related. And what I want to say about her before she gets going, because she won't say this about herself, she really is a medicine woman in the old way. If you travel with Grandmother Georgina, she will point out all the plants to you and tell you what their uses are. And like I remember traveling with her to Illinois, and she pointed out there must be a lot of pollution over there because there's a particular plant. So it was really kind of inspirational to me to think that Mother Earth provides for her own healing by making the plant she needs to heal herself. Like she made all these things, and all the women in the room here, we're all connected in the seeds in our ovaries with the seeds of the earth. And like she is just an encyclopedia. And I see her sitting around the fire, and everyone was coming to her, no notebook in hand, just telling people all the different things that, from the plant world, how they use. And in the plant world, speaking to the plants, it's like one of the old ones that can do that. And like maybe you all begin to remember who we are and what we can do in our lives with the plants that are around us and building our connection to the land. Many people here for another work around environmental justice, and many people understand about land connection, but I'm not sure that everyone really understands about the depth and reciprocity of those connections. So I just want to say that when you realize that we belong to the earth, she doesn't belong to us, it makes a big difference. So I welcome you, grandmother, for all the things that you're going to teach us today. And to let you know that later on this afternoon at our offices at 110 North Hillside Road, she'll be there from 2 to 6, and then all day tomorrow as well. Welcome.
She's wearing the stronghold on her shoulder. Last night we got lost. We ended up at Holyoke, and we had to have Strong Oak to come and get us. So the oak tree is very definite there. Thank you. Usually one of the first things we do is lunch, but knowing where I know we can't do it. We can't like if we had a candle, that's probably one of the first things we would probably light, and not to represent the fire. But since we can't smudge, I have the privilege of having a sister who has a distillery, and she makes essential oils and hydrosols. And she made a very special one that can be used as a sponge. So in that aspect, what I do is I hold the shell that represents the fire, and I get you to spray me with the spray. Okay? So basically it's just doing this, and then over my head. Oh. And you can smell cedar and the sage in it. And so, would you? Okay. I can't get up. You'll have to excuse me. Can you don't go that way. But I'm just going to keep praying. Join hands, please. Walaliuk means we thank you. We never ever say I, we always say we. And when the grandmothers and the sacred spirits come in, they will always identify themselves as we, never I, because I represents the ego. So we know that we're not dealing with, I guess you could say, a true spirit. So when we hear the we know that we are in the good place, what we call sacred space. Thank you. Yeah, if you can. I want you to go. Yeah, put the whole basket right there. Because it's got all the sacred medicines in it.
This is the fire.
It's a fire. Because it contains the 4 sacred medicines of tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, cedar. And I always travel with cornmeal because it represents the southern tribes. And like that, it's included. So when I come down here, there's Cherokee down here as well. So I'm honoring them by being on their land as well as the Abenaki and all of the others that are part of the Mi'kmaq Nation. And that is part of, now they call it Mi'kmaq. And I said I grew up being Mi'kmaq, Indian, and then they, you know, and that was it. Now it's First Nations, Aboriginal, Mi'kmaq, and they keep changing it. Now they want to change to something else again. So I stay with the old way. You know, 3/4 of a century old, I'm not changing. The other thing that I've been instructed to do, and that I wear moccasins all the time. My feet are cold. And I wear the moccasins for the simple reason to represent the children and the 7 generations to come of all of the survivors of residential school. And when a child was taken to residential school, the first thing that was taken away from them was their moccasins. But I've been told I can put my nice woolly ones on to keep my feet warm. And Nadine here is a wonderful individual. She's come into my life at a point in time. Don't know, leave the socks on. and she travels with me. And I think all I need to say to her is, ready for a road trip? And away we go. But it's a blessing to have someone, because a lot of times elders, we don't have the privilege of having sometimes a very good helper. And I've had quite a few in my lifetime where it's been, we just want to be with you because we know where you're going, we know what's happening, we know what's there, and you know, that's part of it. And they'll stay with you for a while until they get the teachings, and then they go on, and they do their own thing, and then they start charging money. And money is not a factor when it comes to sacred teachings and ceremony. And I know we have to live, and I know that there's a lot of things, but it is part of the sacred circle that when we do ceremony, it's very important. And it's the way I was brought up. The teachings I have are over 500 years old and more. So it's a big thing. 1984, I went back to the res. I was going to go home, bring my grandma home. In the late 90s, 1890s, my grandmother was tied to 2 trees by the Jesuit missionaries, and she was whipped publicly, stripped and whipped. And because of what she taught, ceremonies, the sun dance. They did sun dances in the Mi'kmaq territory, but it was different. She would go out at sunrise with her shawls and her bells, and she would dance around the sacred fire, and she would welcome the day in the sun. And this was part of it, as well as the medicines and treating people and working with healing. And that was the big thing. Anyway, at that point in time, she was kicked off the res, and my grandfather brought her back to the New Brunswick side in a canoe across the Restigouche River. And I wasn't born in Canada. I was born in England, of all places. Dad was a Mi'kmaq who signed his rights away as a native Indian to join the Second World War. So he was what was called enfranchised. And he went overseas, met my mom, and I was born over there in 1942. Brought back to Canada, I was a very sickly child with mock. My grandmother took me that day on, my life began. I had no childhood. My life was a learning. Every day there was something new to learn. Every day there was a teaching. Every day there was a plant that had to be utilized. And I had to learn what that plant would do. And of course, the first one she taught me were the plants that could kill rather than heal. So my husband grew. He knew that knowledge, and he said, "Am I safe?" And I told him I wasn't that kind of a person, but I did the healing work, not the other work. There's been a lot, and because I didn't go back to the Res to live, because they wanted the control on me, on who I could teach and who I could talk to. And I chose to move away from it. And I started, we wanted to replenish our clans, because one of the big things, I am what is called Karuti Bear clan, which is the spirit bear. There's very few of us left in the Native communities. And the same with my husband. He's white buffalo medicine man. And his teachings are very different from mine. His is more dealing with the earth, dealing with foods and cooking and things of that nature, and providing the manna that is needed to keep us to survive. So it was a good correspondence between the two. And we said we're all alone in the world. You know, I had 5 children, but we still felt all alone. My clan was secure because my children would come under me, but his was going to die out. So we started adopting children. We didn't care who they are. We just saw the heart, and that was the thing that was the opening door. And so his clan is secure, mine is secure, as we say, for the next 7 generations to come. We also have 39 other clans that are part of our tribe now, with over 500 children. So that is where we are right now. And they're all over the world, from New Zealand to Africa to the Seychelles to Europe and North, South, and Central America. And everywhere I go, and that because tomorrow there is an adoption. And that she's been waiting, 3 years? So it is time for her to come home. So that is part of it. So she becomes part of the Mi'kmaq people under the clan mother. And that will be under the Great Bears. But she chooses her clan. I don't put them under mine. Everyone is born with a clan. They are part of the clan. And I don't take that away from them. So a lot of them don't know what their clan is. But sometimes I can kind of help them a little bit with that. And that's because sometimes the door will open and I can see what's standing behind. So that is part of the things that I do. It never stops. There's no retirement. That's one of the big things. And the phone has been the biggest thing, because I get calls from all over to work with people that need healing and need the plants that I can provide, for whatever is wrong with them. Sometimes it's just counseling. Sometimes it's bringing babies into the world. And that is another beautiful gift. And I got a great-grandson that's going to be born in November. And the incredible thing is that's my mother's birthday. So it's the first male since 1972. So it's a big thing. So it's going to be quite a Christmas this year.
Could I ask is there anybody having trouble hearing?
I know, and I was thinking maybe if you could come closer.
If we do have a little portable mic, if you would mind that, or
I don't mind it. I just ignore it.
yeah.
But I'm wondering if it wasn't working. Maybe we could try it.
Yeah, when I
She doesn't have to vote.
One of the
Classroom, okay.
Thank you. I've noticed, of the anti-racism work I do, is that when I talk to indigenous people about how they do these things, it's often very different, because there's a big inclusiveness. So I want, when you're listening today, I want you to think about, in a sense, I don't know how to put this. I find it really, really heartwarming and inspirational that
I don't think it's working.
indigenous view of that work, that we're all like equal, and the prophecies are about all of the races coming together, and that means that some of the time we need to let go of some of the anger that we have that would want us to hold on to our identity so tightly that we keep the separation going, when in fact we're all interrelated and we're all connected in some big way. And the challenge is to undo the damage from the colonial culture that divided us that way, and realize that sitting here all from all over the world are sitting in this circle and really longing for that kind of a unity where people can speak from their heart and let their heart heal from the damage done. So that's what one of the things I want to say. You will hear that throughout what grandmother is teaching today.
We don't look at the skin, we look at the heart. You know, this is what it is. And growing up, the house was always full. And that my grandmother, you know, after what happened, she lost 7 of her children to residential school. It was like bang, bang. And then I came into her life. And I was the one that used to sit with the bear grease to rub her back and the welts that were on her back. So that was my first learning at healing, was working with that. And there have been others since then that, you know, I've helped. She was a powerhouse. She never stopped. She kind of went undercover for a while, and of course when she got me going, then she could hide in the background. And back then we had no choice, because if the church got a hold of us or whatever, I'm sorry, you didn't have a say in it. There was no voice. And it wasn't until about the 1960s that the voice started to come back again. And then I could step out and say, okay, it's time to teach. I thought this year was going to be my last year. It really did. My back let go. And I ended up in the hospital unconscious for 11 days. But I'm sitting here. The back's been mended. And I don't know how much more is going to happen, but whatever it is, I started with a wheelchair. I got a walker now, and I walked in here under my own steam today. So it's going to continue, you know. But I'm a fighter, and I could not live by being unconscious all the time. This stuff needs to talk. If you have questions, please. I feel so honored to be sitting here today with a group of individuals that literally encompasses, I would say, the whole world. So it's a multicultural group, and I feel honored for that. Please, questions?
When you said that children you adopt, when you said everyone was born into a clan, did you mean native
No,
kids, or you mean everyone?
Global.
Okay.
You know, I've talked to people from New Zealand, and they have their clans. They talk about clans. Australia, the Chinese, the Orientals. You know, I have a son-in-law who's from the Seychelles, and he talked a lot about that. You know? So it's all over the world. Every person that is born into this planet, onto this planet, comes in with 7 animals. 7 animals that come to protect them. They come with a plant. They come with a mineral, stone. These are the gifts given to them so that they can work and do the work they need in their life. And it's an important thing. I walk with all of the clans there now, all of those clan animals, and I've got quite an entourage behind me. But the names that I was given when I became a grandmother. And that was the spirit bear. And of course the name they gave me was Muines Bimbiwakijik. And that means woman who walks with bears. Because I walk with 5 and that as well as a raven and as well as a wolf. So the raven is the medicine and the magic, and the wolf is the teaching, and the bear is power and medicine. So there's a lot there. So, and of course the planetary is cedar. And the stone is one beautiful blue one. It's called lapis lazuli. So it's God, these things. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I know it's okay, but I'll try and ignore the darn thing. But this is part of it. Yes.
I don't know if this is too specific a question, but when you mentioned your own back
Mm-hmm.
and healing it, I have 2 friends right now who are dealing with a hip replacement and fusing of 3 discs in their back,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both in a lot of pain. So I'm wondering if you could speak about what heals backs.
When it comes to pain, whoa, that's a big one because I have lived with it all my life. I told them I've had 75 years of pain. I still have. And that it is one of the things that lets you know you're alive. So when I get up in the morning and I put my 2 feet on the floor and that pain shoots up my spine, I said, okay, I'm here for another day. There are oils that you can get that will help with that. One with yarrow in it, if you can find an oil with yarrow in it, it's a good base, and that to heal where pain is because it warms. And if you go online, there is a distillery in Quebec, and she sends all over the world, and she has an oil that she makes up. It's called Benediction, but it's in French. I can never remember. Benediction. There, she got it. And it's a combination of it, and boy, does it ever feel good when you're hurting. Arnica is another one that's good, but you've got to be careful with it because you're dealing with, if it's a homeopathy, it's for the little pellets. And no more than that, I would say, because you're dealing with a poison. Okay? But it will help because it gets your endorphins working. So that's one of the other things. Willow bark is one, but you've got to be careful because that's pure aspirin. And it can harm the stomach, so you've got to be careful that that can cause internal bleeding. So it's not something that you can take per se every day. I'm off of 2 of the pain medications that they started me off in the hospital. And I do use a wintergreen and cedar and olive oil, wintergreen, cedar, and cayenne pepper mixture that my husband rubs on my back at night that will warm. Because a lot of times they will tell you to use ice or cold when you're hurting like that, and it's not good. It only irritates more. When there's pain, you need heat. And heat will relax all of the tissues and the muscles and that around it. And that's one of the things. Another thing that I use is those little beanie bags, you call them. And you put them in the microwave to heat them, or you heat them on the wood stove or something, and you can put that where you're hurting. But that's about all I will use, and I would suggest others to use, because you don't want to get into the heavier stuff and that where you're dealing with other plants that could be dangerous. That would have to be a one-on-one thing. Okay? Okay. Yes?
I'm wondering about the spirit bear clan that you're in. Is that a white bear like in the West?
It is.
It is.
It
I
is.
never
They
heard of
call-
that in the East before.
Yeah, there is one. We have one. And there was a prophecy given that my grandmother gave me was when the Moody Bear returned to the East Coast, then earth changes are beginning. And they are there.
You're seeing the floods, you're seeing the tornadoes, you're seeing the weather patterns change. It's unbelievable. And it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse.
And have you seen white bears in these?
Yes. Been very privileged to that. And that is one of the things, because there's only 16 left on the West Coast. That's all. Because the problem with the Coyote bear is it is the baby from a black bear, sow. And she has to have the 11th cub. And a lot of them don't live that long to have that 11th cub. It's a recessive gene that comes into play, and the white spirit bear is born. So that's the whole big thing about it, and that it's quite a unique thing. It's like the native individual. A native person in their blood carries one extra gene. And that extra gene is the reason why native people cannot tolerate alcohol. And they're doing quite a study right there now and that on that, because of knowing that that native gene is there. It's room and work for more, I guess, study and experimentation and whatever. But one thing that somebody had asked me one time, they said, well, how much native blood do you have to be, as they call it, quantum? And I said, you only need 1 drop. That's all, because if that gene is in there, then it's in your makeup. And sometimes that unlocks doors. You know? I'm half and half, so. And I mean, there's not many native people today on this planet that are 100% native. We are what I call Heinz 57s. You know? So to me, that doesn't make a bit of difference. It's what you've been taught, what you learn, how you feel, and your connection with spirit. That's what makes all the difference. Okay? Oh, you're going to let me get away easy.
How do we go about learning our 7 planets?
Ask them. Ask them. I'm sure there's a lot of you here do what you call meditation. Okay? Well, the next time you do meditation, ask them to come. Don't come on the side of me or that or the back. Come right in front of me, so I can see you. You know, and then that's what happens. And a lot of people want me to do their homework for them. I won't anymore. And that's part of it. But it's a learning process, you know, and that's how you do it.
I had a question.
Okay.
Because you intrigued me way to talk about regret.
Oh, there she. I knew she was going to bring it up.
About what?
Regret.
Talking about the whole thing about regret and the difference between empathy
And sympathy. 4 o'clock this morning, and I'm holding an eagle feather here. So when you hold an eagle feather, you have to tell the truth. You can't sidestep it. And 4 o'clock this morning, the grandmothers and the grandfathers come in, and that's when they do their best teaching. And one of the things they talked about was regret, because a lot of Native individuals will talk about the 500 years of pain and the regret that's there. We can't change the past. We can't do that. We can only look to now and today. So if we do the best that we can today, then there's nothing to regret. So I said to them, well, I regret one thing. And they asked me what? I said, time. I regret time. When things are good, time goes by so fast. And before you know it, it's gone. And I know it only too well because I don't get a lot of time to spend with Oak. And Oak and I, with the help of an individual who came in to prove that she was non-native, and I bless her every day. I bless her every time I think about it. Ended up going on Ancestry.com and doing her genealogy. And then when I looked at it, found out that my great-grandfather and her great-grandmother were brother and sister. So, 2 different countries, and yet related. How often does that happen in life? You know, it's a blessing. And that's part of where we are. So should I regret the past? No. More than likely her people and her families have to leave the Gaspé Coast because of smallpox epidemics, because of the blankets given by the sailors to the native people. That's where it is. So, you're going to shove that right in my mouth, I know. I can see it coming. You know, so that's part of that. It's time to give up the 500 years of pain. It's time to forgive and let go. And as we say, let God, let Creator take care of it. We're sitting in a world that is not in a good place. We're caught up in that cycle of time that you get up in the morning, you have your breakfast, get the kids off to school, and then there's no time. You go to work, and then you pick the kids up at night, they do their lessons, you get supper, they go to bed, and it's a cycle all over again. It's like a spiral. Where is the time to spend and play with the children? We end up sometimes with too many things to do. And we don't have time for here. We don't have time to find that space within ourselves or look outside at nature and what's there. We don't have time,
As they say, to smell the roses along the way. You know? I think we lost it. Thank you, grandmothers. It's gone.
It happens all the time.
And there's time when I will tell people, please do not put a camera there, because if I do something and somebody will go and start clicking a camera, and the next thing it freezes. But it's okay. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'm sorry.
Is there an on and off switch on the microphone?
It sounds like it was the battery.
I think it's a battery.
George has said. Okay. I think this is going to change it. So that's the whole thing. We've got to find those moments. If it's 2 minutes, 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 20 for us. We put it out there so much and then it's just go, 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 go. Well, I'm supposed to be retired. Sorry, I'm not. I have that phone at home and I'm telling you. They keep telling me I need a Bluetooth and I'm going, no. And those smartphones, they're too smart for me. So I don't want any of them. So I have that other one, the landline, and they call and call and call. It's nothing for 20 calls a day. You know, and that's my life. But that's what I am here to do. It's not your life. You have to find your own. I'm not. At home, well, I have my warrior. He takes care of me, does all the cooking, does all the cleaning, does everything that needs to be done in the house, keeps me nice and warm, and not especially with winter coming on. And it's wonderful. We're so compatible, you know. Yeah.
When you talk about Bert and what he does in the house, literally, he keeps everything clean and does all the cooking. So, and that brings up the mind for me, because that's just medicine.
Yeah.
And like,
The
aside from the whole gender role thing that we got, you know, like, so I was wondering if you could speak about gender equity and meaningful moons and things like this.
Oh, she's getting me with some heavy duty stuff. Yeah, because you're on the full moon right there now, and that's a man's moon. The 12 months of the year, okay, the 12 moons, full moons of the year, that's the male moon. So at that time of the month, it's the male's time to do their drumming, to do their prayers. They're more powerful, more potent at that time. And at that time, we do our ceremonies. We help each other to do the healing work. We help each other in things that need to be there with our children and our families and the hurt and the pain that women go through. It's an incredible thing because in the beginning, when the first ones came from the star seeds, they were androgynous. They were male and female in the same body. And at the great devastation, as they call it, the great separation, male and female were separated. And male and female are still looking for the other half of themselves. And that's what this whole thing is about. But women have been given something special. When they become pregnant, for a short span of time, the child they're carrying within them is androgynous. It's neither male nor female. So it goes back again to the beginning and then comes forward again. So women have that ability. And at the 4-month period, there is one short week that is there that the mother feels the hand of Creator on her. It's called the lightning. It is like a bolt of lightning that happens. And men have lost that ceremony, that ability to feel that, because the only way they can is that point in time for that week, especially at sunset. If the woman sits and the man sits behind her, puts his arms around her and the hands on the belly, and his feet on the inside of her legs, he will feel that lightning strike. And I guarantee you no male will ever leave that child when that happens. They've lost the ability to feel the hand of God. And women have that gift. And I know any woman that's had a child, they know that at that 4th month they feel that, boom. Some put it off as the baby's first kick. Forget it. It's not the baby's first kick. It's the lightning strike from Creator. Bert had the privilege with my 5 to know that. And he is a very powerful person when it comes to family. 55 years we've been together. It's a long time. And I had my first traditional wedding at our 50th. And so I had to wait all those years before I could get the traditional one. But that is part of it. I'm not like most, quote as I put it, Aboriginal, because there are some, they have their own rules, regulations. Different tribes have their own rules, regulations. I'm free to follow whatever I want to do. I get kicked in the backside royally from time to time because I welcome anyone. And in my own home place, if I was living in Ontario, they would pay to bring me down there to teach. Now I'm asked to go west to work with them. It's crazy. But then there is an old saying, you're never a prophet in your own place. So they will bring the others that bring in teachings from the Cree, the Algonquin, wherever. But I sit there with the Mi'kmaq teachings, it's older than them. And yet, it's not enough. And that's sad. We're all related. We have 5 fingers, 10 fingers, 10 toes. We're just different sizes. Everybody wants to be thin. I don't think I'd make a good thin grandmother. I don't think so. And my grandmother, I can remember, She wasn't a small woman neither. But she had a lot of power behind her. And I can remember the days of the residential schools. I can remember the knock on the door because nobody knocks on an Aboriginal home. Maybe today they do, but not back then. And the minute we would hear the knock, my grandmother would push the kids out the door, the back door, and they would run for the woods. I was a cripple. I was tied to the chair. They didn't want me. I was too much care. And I grew up with the guilt. You know, I grew up with that guilt. Why didn't they want me? They were taking my friends away. Why couldn't I go with them? But in that way, I was blessed. But in that way, it also was that this was the work I was to do, was to work with the survivors of residential school. And come to find out my own dad was one of them. I've often said to people, there is nothing you have gone through that I haven't gone through before. Believe me, there isn't. They tried to beat the Indian out of me, and I mean, they didn't want me because I had fiery red hair and blue eyes. What Indian looks like that? Okay? So they were, and my dad wanted me to walk in the white road. He didn't want me to walk that pathway at all. Am I angry with him? No. I buried him. I'm not angry with him. And he wanted an Aboriginal funeral. And the same with my mom. You know? But it's a beautiful thing sometimes when you can get that healing in there. I had 3 years with him and we were able to talk about all of the garbage, as I called it, that had accumulated. And with each talking, we were able to let go of some of it. And it was the same with her. For 10 years, I had my mom with me. That was the blessing. And I had other people to help as well. I'm still standing today. I didn't stand for my legs for the first 6 years of my life, but I'm still standing today. So that says something for something. And that's where empathy and sympathy comes in. When somebody can't do something, somebody says it for me. For you. I'm so sorry for you. And that is sympathy. That's pity. That's what sympathy is pity. A lot of times we don't want to hear the poor. We don't want to hear that because we're trying so hard to fight to do what we need to do to get through one more day. That's where empathy comes in. When you can walk in my moccasins and feel what I feel, or feel what another person feels, then you're walking in empathy. You're working from the heart, not from the head. Sympathy is the head, empathy is the heart. And that is the beginning. Empathy is also called unconditional love. You can reach out to someone and you can say to them, you know something, I love you just for who you are. I love this girl. She stepped into my life when everybody kind of had deserted me, you know, and it was, I didn't even know her then. And it was a phone call I got from a nephew of mine that says, I can't take you to Quebec City. The last minute. And then he says, but Nadine's going to take you. I didn't even know who she was. She didn't have my phone number. I didn't have hers. And here we are on Thursday, and I have to leave Friday. And she calls, and she says, I'm Nadine. I'll be there tomorrow morning. And we traveled to Quebec City. I did 2 days there in French. Let me tell you, that was something. But we did, and that's been the way it is ever since. And I hope it will be from now on, because there are things that I'm putting up there in the works, and it's going to maybe include you.
that's what I'm hoping. But it's all part of working with here, seeing what's around you, looking at things, and looking not only at things but a person. Looking at a person and saying, I see you. You know, that movie Avatar, I love it. Do you know why? Because in that movie, it's the first time I heard the expression, I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. Not me, you. And that is the beauty of it. You don't look, you look at the eyes. That's where the heart's going to be mirrored. And if you can get all the shit and garbage, excuse the language, but it's the truth, and that, I could be nice and say shift, but then take the F out. Still get the same thing. And remember, it's fertilizer. And that, if you can get that out of the way, then you're working with that empathy and you're working with that unconditional love that we all have. If somebody in the community is having a problem or is in trouble, you know, especially with birth, they need to be fed, they're hungry, they need something, food, whatever, that's it. And I'm sure that man gathers everything that he possibly can, because if anybody needs anything in the house and they don't have it, he's got it. That shed of his has got everything in it, from microwave to you name it. Just gave a pellet stove away, with the chimney and everything, because somebody needed it. You know? That's the way he is. He provides. That's his gift. That's the gift of the buffalo. The buffalo in the old days used to give its life, and that for the people, and that so that they had food. On the East Coast, it's the moose. You know, that's the closest, and that is part of it. I've seen in the old days turn on and that where we would have people that they were called callers. And in the dead of winter, February, which was the worst time of the year because a lot of Native people died, and that from hunger and starvation, they would get what they called a caller. And the caller was always a woman, always a woman. And she would do the ceremonies and the prayers that were needed. And then she would go out with the warriors to the woods, and she would call the animal, and the animal would come to her to provide the food. Those days are gone. A lot of those things are gone. And people think today, because we've got the computers and we've got these darn things, you know, that's going to be the way of it. I'm sorry, they're going to. Everybody says, you're going to lose your computers. Sorry. What is one of the biggest things to cut? Make the world sit up and listen. Communication and electricity. Take the electricity away, you've got nothing.
I find myself here thinking about how you as a people, I'm thinking of the witness of the people in Standing Rock, who prayed the whole time they were there, and yet received such violence and
Because that is the way of government.
court dismissing. So my question is how you stay connected to trusting a greater force when you're confronted with that apparent loss of what your intention was for being there.
It has been the way with the Native people for as long as I can
Yes,
remember.
I'm sure. And
I can remember being in Alberta and being there for a conference. And in the meantime, the police were going into the res that was home and taking the women and the children and throwing them around. And sorry for the language, but
They were peeing on them and everything. And looking for salmon nets, because they said they were fishing salmon illegally. We have no rights in Canada. Native people have no more rights. It's gone. But it's the way of government. It's the way of politics. It's the way of what people are taught. This is the reason why the Native communities have elders. This is why we sit and we talk with them. We tell them the stories of the old. We know what's coming. We have been watching the things that have been going on. We know by the signs that are there. You know, you're flooding in Florida and in Texas and Alabama and Louisiana is not just happening. It's going to continue. The lowlands are going to be gone. And one of the things that I can tell you, if you live in Florida, get the frig out. If you live along that Texas coast, get out. If you live in California, get out. Native people in Phoenix, Arizona are selling waterfront property. There's no waterfront property there. But they know the waters are coming.
And I want to know how you hold that intention and that witness. I mean, when I saw the people in Standing Rock, I'm like, they're coming back. Their strength is on the news every night.
And they will continue. You're asking to talk about specifics where ceremony comes. When we do our ceremonies, tobacco is a very sacred thing with us. But we don't need to use always tobacco. We can use sage, we can use cedar, we can use sweetgrass, cornmeal. The intention is not what's in the hand. The intention is what's in here. That prayer that goes with what you're holding. And whether you put it in the fire or you give it to the earth, the intention in the prayer is gone. That's why Eagle is there. Eagle takes those prayers to Creator. He is the one that can fly the highest of all of the birds. There's none fly higher than him. We know of one because we have the stories of the Thunderbird. But the Thunderbird went so high that he's no longer with us. Because he hid himself on the back of the eagle. And when the eagle couldn't go no higher, he flew. And he got caught up in the stars. When we take that tobacco, that prayer, that we have done, and we put it in the fire, and it burns, the smoke goes. That is part of the intention. And whether you're sitting at home whatever you're doing, and that is the big thing. Prayer is the most powerful thing there is. It can move mountains. It can change things. It can do wonders. It is incredible. I have seen people stand around the bed of a person dying in a hospital, and that person come back. And when you're asked them, they say, we heard the prayers and we knew we were needed. That is the intention. When I teach children, because they can't handle tobacco and stuff like that, I tell them they have 3 things on their body that they can offer. It doesn't need to be tobacco. They have their hair. They can pull a few strands out, and they can offer their fingernails. But the most important one they have is their spit. It comes from that sacred pipe that's inside of all of us. The stem, the bowl. So the spit is the smoke of the sacred pipe. It's a very powerful thing. I went looking for a little plant called gold thread one time. I had a bunch of street, the toughest that you could ever want. And they told me, they said, you're never going to do anything with these kids. And I said, you Want to see? We did the fire, and I gave them all a little bit of tobacco, just a little bit, to put in the fire. And I said, okay, now we're going to go find some gold thread. So it usually grows under sphagnum moss. So I took them to a place and I told them what to look for. You lift the moss up and you see the tiny little gold threads all under the moss. That's what I'm looking for. But if you pick a gold thread, you've got to leave something behind. You can't take something from the earth and say, okay, fine, thank you, and walk away. I'm sorry, it don't work that way. That's disrespect. You leave something behind for her. That's one of the big problems we have today, is we do not respect the earth and the animals that are there, and the trees and the plants and everything. And everything is being demolished. But with that little bit of intention, I was looking at the counselor and I went like that. And he said, what is it? Take a look. Here was one of the worst that we had. One of the worst boys we had. He had lifted a piece of the moss and he saw the gold threads and he picked them all out and he put them in the bag, and then I said, watch him, watch him. And sure enough, he turned on and he brought that spit up from wherever he could get it, and then it went to the earth. And then he very gently covered the ground again with the moss he had lifted. He's going to be okay, I told him. They said, no, he's not going to be okay. He is. He came to me, I saw him years later, and I couldn't believe it because he brought me an eagle feather. And he said to me, he said, I'm too young to handle this. Will you take care of it? I still have it. He still hasn't come to get it back. So he's not quite ready for it yet. So intent and doing, action. You can say things, but if you don't take a first step to an action, then that's it. And maybe Standing Rock's not meant to be handled that way. Okay? Sometimes it needs a different route to work in a different way. And that is part of it. How can you, it's like I often say, can you do something alone? Your little voice is not very big. It would take thousands. And you know what? They have been listening to the voices and the cries of Native people for as long as I can remember. And we're still back in the 1920s. Nothing has changed. So what then is the intent? We need Earth Mother to do the cleaning. And that's where the intent has got to go. She can shake herself in one moment and destroy things like you would not believe. She can use her children, the wind, the rain, and fire. And I'm telling you, you're not going to stand up to a volcano or a tornado or an earthquake. You're going to run. And that's part of it. We need to start talking to her. I started teaching children about gardens. And I'm telling you, 4 corners of your garden, you've got to make an offering to her to take care of what you do. If you don't do it, you're not going to get a good garden. Sorry. You might get a half garden. Maybe you might be lucky. You might be lucky to get a good garden. If you do it every time, you'll have a good garden. You'll have a good crop. So intent is what it is. And you know what? Some things are not meant to be. One of the prophecies that I know of, it says, Native people shall lead the races back home. And that is a beauty, because my grandmother as a child used her cane. She said, in the beginning, there were 5. Sorry, I need to hold up. Sorry, in the beginning, there were 8. 2 returned to the stars. 1 returned to the stars, but the grandmother and grandfather stayed. 4 went to the 4 corners of the earth. 1 remained to be the heart and to hide the hidden one. And the 4 encircled them. When Raven returns white, as the day he was in the beginning, he will lead the 3 back from the stars. They will find the hidden one, and the 5 will be there free. The hidden grandmother and grandfather are from the copper race. They're hidden among the 5 races on the planet today. And they're waiting. They're waiting. They're waiting to see where humanity is going to make the decision of what it needs to do to create a better world. Are you going to think first, when something comes into your space, of what you need to do for somebody? Okay? Somebody comes to you and they may need just a word of, maybe it's praise, maybe it's just a hug, maybe it's just a word of encouragement. And you say, no, she doesn't deserve it. I'm not going to do that. And you walk away. Well, you've just put yourself up, buried yourself, I guess you could say, a hazelnut in the ground with nothing, and then to shut. But if you took that person and you put your arms around them, and you say to them, I love you, no matter what, we can have a cup of tea, we can talk. Then you have opened a big door. When someone comes to me, and they say to me a lot of times, I've been told by somebody that they help me. I had one man who came to me one time, he said, my name is so-and-so, and he says, I'm dying. Well, I said, you're standing. I said, come on in, we'll have a cup of tea, and we'll see where it goes from there. He's still around today. He's still around. I haven't seen him in, probably the last 14 years. But every now and then, I get a little card from him, and on it he says, I'm still here. I'm still here. It's thinking before you act. Sometimes we move too quick to act, and we don't think. And that's where regret comes in, again. So sometimes you need to go to that person and say, look, I'm so sorry. I said this. I thought this. And it really hurts me that I feel that way. Can I just give you a hug? Can you give me one back? And say it's okay. Oak will tell you, I don't shake hands. I hug. Bears hug. Okay? They do. And this over here, that's all she does. I go around the world hugging everybody I can get my arms around. And that's what I do. And that hug tells me so much about somebody. Because you let me in your space. In order for that hug to work, you let me in your space. And in that moment, there's a connection. And that's what's important. I hope I've answered that as best as I possibly can. If not, you will have to seek another elder.
I was just thinking
I don't
about-
see your hand there.
I'm really listening very much to what you're saying, and I feel all lit up inside with the words. But I was thinking about when you were talking about ceremony and I was thinking about me as an Indigenous woman what Standing Rock meant to me. It wasn't that people had to leave or it was that those buffalo came. And I knew that there were people praying, and some of them were at some of the elders. Grandmothers came and they were talking about how they had prayed.
Yeah.
And the eagle came and allowed itself to be stroked, and the buffalo came. Indigenous people look at that as the sign that the Creator is with us, and that's the ceremony. All the rest of the stuff is not what matters. It's the promise of the Earth Mother taking care of herself. It was the change in attitude among the people that made the difference. If all this culture of people from all walks of life came there from all around the world to make a statement about Mother Earth, we belong to her. She doesn't belong to us. And they were praying for everybody's water. That intent goes on, whether people have to leave the space or not. The intent of the cleaning of the water and love for the water goes on and on and on until it's done. That's how I look at the intent.
And that's another way.
So, and I hope it's good that I shared it with us. So I was thinking about the regret that you were talking about. I was thinking, okay, so what is the role, we now know that when people that undergo a great deal of trauma, that they carry in their DNA, that's the product of. I was thinking about, if you could talk about how ceremony is really critical to let go, because you can't will that away, but how ceremony can be used to truly heal those spaces.
You remember when I went around, Oak went around with these, right? And that was a blessing on everyone. That was a purification. That was a letting go. That's part of it. One of the things that we are taught is we see a lot of the pain and the trauma go through us, and we give it back to the earth. We let Earth Mother, we sink our roots deep into the earth, and we let her take that, because she takes it and changes it. She changes it into something. I remember for years and years and years the pain of abuse and that I underwent. And how can I let that go? And I was taught, you breathe it out. You breathe in the air that we breathe. You hold it. This is your stew pot, right here, okay? And it's always overflowing with guck and shift.
I didn't say the word again. At least I'm holding it.
Yeah, she's holding a feather. But the feather knows me. And that. So we need to let that go because it gets so full. And I mean, there's a reason why the solar plexus is the yellow color. Okay? It's all like garbage and gook and stuff that sits there. When we hold it to the count of 4, 4 is the sacred number, the 4 directions. And then we breathe it out. We breathe some of that out. So you need to keep emptying that pot because it keeps filling. With all the stuff we have every day, it keeps filling. So we breathe it out. We let it go. We let it go. Sometimes there's people who can help us to let go.
Is that kind of like
Crying is another way of letting go. You know, there are many ways to do this. But when you're doing it, think of it that way. I mean, I cry sometimes because I'm so happy I just can't handle it anymore. You know, but you put out what is the crying for. And I would breathe, and I would breathe, and breathe. And then I said, you know, Creator, everybody tells me I'm hurting so bad that I must be doing something wrong. Well, what am I doing wrong? I'm not here to turn around and what is the wrong. I'm here to teach empathy to people. That's what my focus is.
You're here to what?
Teach empathy.
Okay.
So that when I am stumbling along and somebody comes along and says, let me help you, grandmother, I don't say no. Not anymore. Not anymore. I give up on the oh no, I'm okay. It's thank you.
I have a question. How do you teach your children and or other adults, but especially the children, to deal with issues that are race related, race, hate, crime, whatever? What do you do? How do you teach them?
You teach them who they are. What are their roots? You tell them their roots grow strong and deep within earth. A lot of times, because people would look at me and they say, oh, I would turn around and say to them, no, I am the daughter of she who speaks the truth and Rainbow Eagle. I am the daughter, the granddaughter of Raven's Wing, and he who stands tall. I am the great-granddaughter of Singing Waters and Running Bear. And I can go back further if you want. I am who I am. I am the color I am. Creator made me with the fiery red hair and the blue eyes, but my grandmother saw inside and knew I was the one following her footsteps. We need to teach children who we are. Don't be ashamed of what color you are. I've been asked so many times, well, do you just adopt Native people? I'm sorry. I have them from every nationality going. I don't care what an individual looks like. And I told them, they can come to me and be polka dotted and green and yellow or whatever. That's not what I look at. But I've taught my children to stand up. So when someone says to me, Ben, I'll turn around and go back to the res, or you're a wagon burner or whatever. And I'll look at them and I said, you tell them that's their ignorance showing. That's your ignorance showing. You know? And I know who I am. Can you tell me who you are? Sometimes it stops. And sometimes I tell the kids, you just can't get past that barrier of where they are. Just tell them you love them and walk away. But it doesn't matter. It's hard. And children have a tough time, especially in the schools. You know, and this is one of the beautiful things that teaching the children, and I am encouraging a lot more of the Native people to go into the schools to teach. I went to France, and what we did over there was show and tell, as I call it, because the children over there had never seen an eagle feather. They still figured I lived in an igloo or a teepee, you know, and it was like, no, I live in a house. Well, have you got a washer and dryer and an electric stove and that? Yeah. I don't do the cooking though, you know, but that is where I am. We need to let the children know that we are proud of them, no matter what. No matter who they are or what they are, or if they're smart or not smart, whatever, we love them. You need to tell your children every day you love them. My baby's 45 years old, and he'll call me up and say, hey, Mom, what are you doing? And I'll say, oh, I'm not doing too much today. Are you coming over to help your dad tomorrow? And he'll say, yeah, we'll talk for a while. And I'll say, you know, I love you, son. And he'll turn around and say, yeah, I love you too, Mom. You need to teach them from the time they're little. I love you. You keep telling them every day, I love you. And even when you get into a space where you're kind of a little angry or upset with them, when you've told them what it is they've done wrong, go back, bring them a cookie or something to show that you really mean it. But tell them you love them. Tell them and bring them up as who they are and make them strong in their own roots. That is the important thing. It's, you know, I carried my ancestry with me in a file for years until I had a white man ask me, you know, who are you? You're not Native. What's this? And then I'm looking at him and I'm going, he's white. What the hell is he asking me for? You know? And I closed the file up and I looked at it and I said, sorry, you're not looking at this anymore. Nobody is anymore. And I know who I am and I don't need to be told. You prove I'm not. You know? You prove I'm not. And that was one of the big things.
And I've stood that way and stood that strong all of my life. And I've gone through some pretty rough patches, but you know what? I'm still here. And I'm still talking. You know? So that's part of it. We need to teach them that. We need to give them the tools that they need to work in this world. And to know, the big thing is to know they're loved no matter what happens. That you love them, because it's not the people out there that's going to love them, it's you. And that's what needs to happen with the children. When they look at you, they're not, I've been called everything that I think anybody can be called under the book. From a witch, well, to a wagon burner.
I have another question. Well, it had to do with this, native, non-native status, non-status issue in our community, because I was thinking about that a lot of people who do the work that I do, that are dealing with the violence, towards children, sexual and domestic, the violence towards our families, and the fact that we have so much more sexual violence on the reservations than any other group in America. And actually, as a race of people, have had more violent activities against us than any other group, statistically speaking, through the Department of Justice. That, in that violence, that on the reservation, you can't deal with that there. Like, the people that do the work that I do, if someone wants to deal with having been hurt, they end up having to leave the reservation. And the people who do my work on the reservation tack guns to protect themselves in the bush. And it's like part of that, missing and murdered children business. So this is the legacy of the residential boarding school, but also in the structure of the reservation that has caused a division between non-status, as you were talking earlier about. In order to do your work, you have to leave the reservation because there's a role on the reservation for how you do your work. I've heard that here with the Wampanoags, and I talk about I'm free to do what I want. It's like grandmother said she's free to do what she wants. But if I were on the reservation, I would have to do what I do. There would be a council that's mostly government controlled that would decide what I can and can't do. And, even to do the work to try to heal what's going on. So, and the grandmothers that were here last week at the Starseed, they said the same thing. To do their healing work, they had to leave the reservation. And yet, in the white world, you see a lot of what I call affinity to the reservation, or this, I can't find my word.
Romanticism.
Yeah, this, wonderful thing, or the reservation. Actually, I don't even know if I'd be healthy if I was had grown up on the reservation, because I would have probably had fetal alcohol syndrome, and I would have also been subjected to racial violence. And there would have been nothing to mitigate that. So a lot of the people doing the work have to call centers, in our area, like the Mass Center for Native American Awareness is more free to do their work than if you were a federally recognized tribe. And I think you all should know this, because we have a big problem.
We do.
And I thought that's what speak, because you know more about that even than I do.
Yeah, because I have worked both. Okay, I have worked both. The Healing and Wellness Foundation in Ottawa with the government, Indian Affairs, had me go into a res. They had me go into several of them to work with primary thing, drugs and alcohol, residential school survivors, molestation, incest, all of that. I spent 3 years and burned myself out. And right there now, there is a big thing because of what I call money between status and non-status. I can have my status. I don't want it. I don't want to live on a res. I don't want to live in a ghetto. I want to be free, and the big thing with me was in 1984 when I came back to the res, all I wanted to do was bring my grandma home. I didn't want anything else. I wanted to bring her back home. And that, because they were the ones that threw her out in the beginning. And I just wanted to do that. And I had a band counselor say to me, great, we got our medicine woman back. Now we can tell her who she can teach and who she can't. Wrong words to say. My name in Mi'kmaq is Sahayus. This is the one that I work with the most. It means plant woman in everyday language, but it has another meaning behind it. It's she who flies high and free. And free, that's the big thing. And my grandma had always told me, don't ever let anybody ban you. Because when you become a number, you become nothing at all. You lose yourself. And I did work there. I worked with all kinds of different things. I've had to deal with bringing in the police because of incest and molestation to young children. I've had to deal with young children that were enticed into the prostitution rings in Toronto and help bring them back home because they would go in, the pimps would go into the res because the police can't come in there. It's our CMP that has to come in. And sometimes they take hours to come into a res. Well, by then, the child is in Toronto and she's on the streets. So then we would have to send out, and look for them. And that's where a lot of these missing women are. If they're not dead or in a bordello in the Middle East, because the Arabs want the dark-haired, dark-eyed women, then they're dead. And that is the sad part. And, we have hundreds of missing young girls and women. And DC is one of the places that is the worst. But, I've been through all that. I've had to deal with police. I've had social services come in and take children off the res, still like they did residential schools, and then have to work 6 months with them. I've been called, well, we don't want to talk to you because you're a welfare bitch, and that, okay, fine. Just because I carry an eagle feather? Well, sorry, walk in there with your briefcase and your nylons and your high heels and my jacket. It put a different picture. We're not going to let your daughter graduate, okay? Because turn around and that, she doesn't need her diploma. Sorry, school board, I'm walking in. And am I a welfare bitch? I'm sorry, I'm working for a doctor. That's where I am. I've had to deal with these issues all my life. And it's something you grow up with. But if you don't do something, you have a child that comes to you and starts telling you that what is happening to them by a grandfather, or a father, or a brother, or an uncle, whatever. And that. You do nothing. You're as bad as the individuals that perpetrate this. We have a law in Canada. If you do not report it, you go to jail as well. And there's been many a times I've had to call them in and say to them, look, this is what happened. This is what happened. And then you find out that other members of the family have also been hurt and molested as well. And they've kept silent. You have to open the doors. Or sit all night with a dying woman who's been part of the residential school and has a tattoo on her arm the same as the Jewish people had in Auschwitz. Where do you think the Germans learned how to put numbers on Jewish people's arms? Yeah. And that, it came from learning about what the government did to Native individuals.
Right.
That's where they learned it. And we're still fighting. We don't want to belong to the government. According to the British North American Act, it says we are chattel of the Canadian government. We don't want that. We want to be individuals in our own communities. Well, as long as there are reserves, we still belong to the government. We're not a free people. We're not. What the government says and the monies the government sends to the reserves, because you get a per diem per head for every individual on the res. So I think the price is $40 a head now. You know, it's not much, but that's what the way it works. And their band councils work the same way as the government in politics in Ottawa. It's the same thing. They taught them to fight among themselves. If they can keep them fighting among themselves, they don't have to worry about nothing. They can go on with what they do. Oh, let them kill each other. What's the expression we use? Fishing rights, hunting rights, all that. People think, oh, Native people have it so good. Sorry. If you're off reserve, you get nothing. You're going to be the same as everybody else. If you live on reserve, you're still paying taxes in Canada. Your fishing rights and your hunting rights are gone. They will arrest you if you go in to try and hunt for food for your family. There's a lot of class action suits in Canada and the government right there now over that. It's not going to go anywhere. It's been ongoing for as long as I can remember. You know, I mean, it's been years and years and years and years. How long does a class action suit last? You know? There does not seem to be an end to it. Well, maybe we need to start talking to her. You know, her energy is right there. I can feel it under my feet. And it passes right straight through, right down. You need to sit on her. Sit on her. Let her talk to you.
No, grandmother, the same things that you're talking about in Canada, it's the same thing here. It's the same.
There's a real war going on right there now between status and non-status.
Yes.
Status don't want you interfering in their work because they get the money for it from the government. Okay, so that's number one. The other thing is they don't want you rocking the boats. Okay? But most elders live off res. And there's a lot of them live off res. And the ones that live on, there is a war going on between traditional and non-traditional right now. And the ones that live on res, they go through a lot. They have their houses burned. There's all kinds of stuff that's happening. You know, this is it. I've seen elders that have bodyguards to go and do things. It's not a pretty world we live in. And it's not a pretty world for a lot of the other races as well. And I can sympathize with that right here because I know what they feel. And I know what they're going through. And I hurt for them. And I pray to her and offer my tobacco, my fire, my sweetgrass, my cedar, my sage, and the candles, the fire from the candles. I sit in prayer probably about maybe 11, 12 hours a day, 13 sometimes, maybe more, in prayer. I don't consider myself a religious person because I'm not. Being Native is a way of life. It's not a religion. And I remember that was one of the things I got into a lot of controversy over with the newspaper. It is a religion. I'm sorry. You walk the red road, as we call it. You're walking a very narrow road. And it's a way of life. Because you look at everything around you, even to the board going into the house or the window that you look out. Everything belongs to her, even our bodies. Not the inside, not our spirit, but our bodies are made from her. We go back to her. When school is finished here, because this is what this is a school, we go back, the body goes back to the earth, we go back home. Earth is just one big school. You're born into it, and when you die, you graduate. That's it. And if you commit suicide, then you're sent back immediately. So suicide's not an answer matter. Because you come back sometime as a baby in a third world country. and you don't have a long life to live. And that's probably the amount of time you had left in your original life. So it's all part of it. It's one big circle, and we don't see the whole picture. You know, in the time ahead and the time that's to come, probably one of the big things is we're going to see the whole picture. And it's very different from what we see. One of the greatest gifts my grandmother taught me was to be able to help people when they do their journey, as we call it, their transition. And I sometimes go and sit. Well, when they get close to that point of where they're starting to cross over, I begin to see the people who's coming to group them to take them home. I can go with them so far, only so far. But I get to see who is their leader. Let me tell you, there's no heaven, no hell. None. I've been there. I know. I died when I was a child. And I crossed over. And I did it again as a young woman. I know what's there waiting for me. But my time's not yet. And a lot of people are surprised. Start thinking of you in the wee spirit that you are connected with everything around you, even to the air that flows around you. Breathe it in, it becomes safe. Breathe it out, it releases the anxieties that you hold. It begins your healing journey. Not mine, yours. Show kindness, be gentle with people, and if you lose your temper, I'm not afraid to sing your song.
I have a question. Well, I was just thinking about when you full circle, we come full circle.
I know.
So I was thinking, well, now this empathy thing, especially how do you see that in like working with people that hurt you?
That's when you need to start talking. Okay? People, like a lot of times, I sometimes don't think when I do things sometimes. And sometimes I step on people's toes with what I say, you know. And I'm the first one that's quick to say, I'm sorry. If I have said anything to offend you, then I am sorry. You will either love me or hate me. I don't know which. But that is yours. But if I have done anything to hurt you or anyone else with my words, then please forgive me.
Now, grandmother, how about number 45?
What's number 45? Oh, number 45. I'm sorry. We don't call him that. I'm sorry.
And those
He's
who
just
hurt you
he's just the village idiot.
Like, I was thinking about those that really hurt you in big ways. How do you apply empathy to someone who is maybe...
Keep praying. But it's like I said this morning too. He may be used by Creator to be the catalyst to bring more change in his mind. You know, we don't see the full picture. And it's a scary thing, because I mean, I'm just up in Canada there. There's only like we were coming across the border and I said, I wonder if they'll stop us. You know, I carry a sacred bundle. They know me, but they don't know quite what I do. And maybe they might send me back home, you know. I can really feel, as I said, I spend a lot of time in prayer. And every time I see him come on the TV, I turn around and I pray for him too. But can't you get enough people to get him out of there?
Yeah, but then there's Pence.
Is he any better or is he worse?
He's worse.
Worse.
Someone said he's the same bad ideas, but he's sane.
Yeah, he is worse.
So he's more dangerous.
Well, you know what? Give it back to Creator. And put it back in his hands. When there's something that I can't solve, I'll say, Creator, you take care of it. You know, I'm sorry.
I have a question. Say, for instance, the tree outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
tree and well, and when it dies, right? There's no
It has children.
right. It has children and all that, but when it's dead, it's dead. I mean, it doesn't produce leaves, right? And when people die, what makes I'm just doing some deep thinking here. Because you say there's no heaven and there's no you're just kind of
Here.
it's here. So this is the end of the road. And, I mean, I'm just
It's not
This is-
exactly the end of the road because your spirit lives on.
but the tree is also a living thing.
Yes, but
And-
you also, it's the tree, the difference between a tree and you is a tree has essence, what is called essence and energy. That energy will stay in that tree for 2 years after it's dead.
So what makes it so important that my soul lives on, or my
You, Creator, has put in you something and given you something far more important. He has given you the ability of free choice. And that, do I look at that tree and say, okay, you're dead, you're dead? Or do I look at it and say, okay, you will warm me with your energy, you will burn in my heart, it will continue. Your ashes will go in the ground and become part of my garden and will grow things. It's a continuous circle. Nothing is ever lost or changed. It just changes. When we die, our bodies go into the ground. Okay?
I
And
understand
but our
that.
soul goes on. You know, the only thing that I say is when a lot of times when people die, they get there and they figure they're going to heaven or they've been so bad they're going to hell. Well, there is a book, okay, a book of life that's there. And you get to see that book of life and everything you were supposed to do and everything that you didn't do. Okay? And you get another chance to come back and make things right or to go on and help others from the spirit space. So it's again about choices. We've been given that. Creator saw in us something and gave us that free will choice. And that is an important thing.
Well, because the reason I'm asking this is I think about the bigger picture. The other picture is that, a lot of us in here work really hard to help, heal racism. And then I see a lot of us aren't working real hard
That
to
is
help.
a choice.
Right, that's a choice, but if it's all about them and it's all about the me that, I don't have to do this work, But in the end, we're going to all end up together. And
Then there's different levels, my dear. It's like steps. It's like in this, I hate getting a little difficult, but nonetheless, sometimes it does have some good words. In Revelations, it says that 1/3 of everything on the earth will be saved. 2/3 is going to cross over. And I had one individual that said to me, what about my family? Well, I said, by the actions you do, you secure your family. But if they're of the age of reason, they have to make their own choices. It's a very difficult place for me to be sometimes, knowing what's ahead for us, because I've had the visions of that. And knowing that I'm going to have brothers and sisters that won't be there. But then what is the worst that can happen to them? They cross over and they have a chance to come back again to do it right the next time. We do things. I could stay home and not do a darn thing and keep my mouth shut. But sometimes when I'm out there and that voice, that one word sometimes that I may say to someone might be the one thing they need to change things in their life. That's being of service to humanity.
But I often wonder, even with our present political situation, there will be some place to come back to.
There will be. Third dimensional Earth is going to be here for eons and eons and eons. It's school. But at graduation, okay, or with the change, Earth Mother shifts every 138,000 years. So we are getting near that again. In fact, we're overdue. But Creator will not let her do what is called a clean until the last soul is awakened. Everybody has that chance. So we are right in the throes of being at that point. You know, there's places on this planet that are going to be really safe. And I fully believe Creator knows the Earth children. Earth Mother knows her children. And my grandmother always used to say, there's a difference between people. There are those that are takers. There are those that are the givers. You need to be with the givers, not those who will continue to take. Because people will continue to take and take and take and take, and nothing points will give them back. A giver is a healer. A giver is someone who will help the next person to them, who will talk to them, who will teach. That is the difference. That's being of service to somebody. And again, it's a choice. So we do the things that we do. Like somebody said to me, why are you fixing your house if you know what's coming? I'm sorry, I have to live in that house until it happens. I'm not going to wait for the windows to fall out or whatever, just because I know what's coming. You still have to have goals. There's books I want to write, and that. There's things that I want to do, and that. That's part of humanity. A book in the future is going to become far more important than anything that we have today. And if you go down through history, the written word has always been there. It's something that has survived from before Egypt, to now. I mean, let's face it, there are books out there that are what I call garbage books, but there are a lot of other good books out there, And I'm not talking about self-help, but there are some real good fiction books out there. And inside those books, those fiction, there is a spark of truth in there. Don't you think Star Trek is not getting us ready for what is coming?
So, sorry.
Okay, so?
Just one more thing. So it seems like what you're saying, what I'm hearing is, the way I can relate to it is that it's probably better to be dead than to be here now.
No. But then it's hard to sit we need this, for every hardship we have, for everything that goes wrong, it makes us stronger. And I know you've heard that before, but it is true. And it gives you a strength, it gives you a will, and it makes you want to go on and go on. Oh, there's nothing I would love better than turn around and say, okay, Creator, pull the plug, and because I know what's waiting for me. But no, there's things I need to do. There's stuff I have to get ready for, and I have to get people ready for. I've been very privileged to meet some wonderful people in my life. Patch Adams is one of them. Gordon Michael Scallion is another one. And these individuals, they have been given little bits and pieces of things, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And we're all part of it. You're a part on that big puzzle. And we need you there. You know what? If that part doesn't fit in, then the puzzle is never going to be completed. So you are needed. Don't ever think that you're not needed. You are. In that great picture, you are as important as the next one to you. If you're not there to complete that puzzle, then the puzzle will never be finished. So you are needed for that. You are important, my dear. It's not what you are, it's who you are and that you are important. You're important to this world, you're important to this planet. You are important to your community, you are important to family, and you are important to everyone around you. Don't ever think you're not. You are part of that puzzle, and we need you. We definitely, big time need you.
Thank you.
You were talking about books.
Mhm.
I get the sense that much of what you know is derived from the oral tradition.
It is.
The tens of thousands. What have we lost by having
Oh my God, we have lost so
What have we
much.
lost by having the written word?
That is a fight I have gone through for, I think, most of my life, because everything I've learned has been oral tradition. How can you write down a ceremony in a book? They danced around the fire, they threw tobacco in, they did this, they did that. And all of the underlying things that happen there sometimes can't be explained. But there are things that can be written, and I'm still fighting. There are stories I know, that have never ever been published, that I've been told as a kid while hiding under the bear rug or whatever. Some rug, and that, some fur. And these, I think I need to get out for the children. The story of Rosefeather, the story of White Raven, Father Creator's Pot, there are many. These have been lost among the tribes. And I was telling Nadine about the White Raven. She's seen a raven with a white feather. And that is another sign that we are in what is called the cleansing time. Also, there are people down our way that have seen the white community bear. And of course, I'm given a report just about every month on, how he's doing. The natives are taking care of him. He's well hidden. And they know not to go and shoot him on that. So that's one of the big things. So one of the prophecies my grandmother gave me was when the white community bear returned to the East Coast, and that the East Coast and the West Coast both had their community bears. Know the end times are near. Well, that community bear is about 5 years old now. Easy. But books are important. There's a lot of things you can learn from books. And I mean, there's all kinds of healing books out there. There's all kinds of self-help books and gardening books and all kinds of things like that. Story books, tale books, and that. But when it comes to ceremony, that's a whole different thing. So the ceremony needs to be where it is in its sacred space. And all the rest of it can be told and can be written. So I'm finally getting to the point where I can, after all these years, with oral tradition, say to a 7-year-old child who says to me, "Grandmother, I can't come and sit at your knee every week because I live too far away. Can you please write the story?" So that's where I am. And it's an important time.
This is a good place for us to end today. It's just about the ending time, and it felt like that was like. And so I want to thank you for coming. I also wanted to honor Gloria for all the things that I know that
Yes.
Gloria does for children that people don't necessarily know that she does, and for all the work that everyone here has been doing. Everyone in here has been a person in service.
And they're a piece of that puzzle.
And they're here to listen to you, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And
I am too.
I'm glad to be among the living.
Because you're. Because let's face it, when the snow's gone, the soul bear goes in her den. And she don't come out till spring.
If you want to learn more, there's so many things that Grandmother hasn't even been able to touch upon in this 2-hour period around her work, with stones and with plants
Well, I
and
knew
that.
she was going to bring that up.
So from 2 to 6 today, we'll be at our new office that Vision Bear has at 110 North Hillside Road, which is right across from the the Magic Wings. The road runs right directly across, and we're over the railroad tracks to the left in the Deerfield Business Center. So please feel free to come later on today if you want, and also tomorrow from 10 to 4 will be a potluck as well, and teachings. There might be some dreams of things that you have on your mind that you might want to talk about or ask.
She's opening all the books.
You know, please come and join us. Any announcements?